I know that there are reps that are not performing well at company A, but at company B, they'll crush it. I think a lot of it is just fit related in terms of process, industry, culture, like a lot of those kind of things. But there's definitely a component of it of people trying to chase 5 or 10% more money or things like that.
Welcome to the Modern Selling Podcast, where we help the entire sales community to create more sales conversations with today's modern buyer. This includes anyone from entrepreneurs and business owners to sales reps and sales leaders. Each episode, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you find, engage, connect, and nurture your relationships with your buyers. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., your host, and you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Zant, the enterprise leader in sales engagement. Zant has authored the definitive guide to sales cadence. Get your copy at salescadenceguide.com. That's salescadenceguide.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. And I couldn't be more excited to have my friend, Mr. Mike Volpe, CEO of Lola.com. And Mike, welcome to the show, my friend.
Happy to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
This will be a lot of fun. Now, those of you listening in, you got to listen into this one because here's something very interesting that you probably didn't know. Mike's background actually started out with HubSpot. Now, this is a small little company known as HubSpot. Yeah, you heard that right. If I'm not mistaken, Mike, you took them through to IPO and you were there as their CMO for about, 7, 8 years?
8.5 years.
8.5 years. So we're talking to somebody who's actually been around the block in terms of helping companies grow. And what I'm excited about today is we're going to spend some time talking about diversity, inclusion. We'll be talking about how to build a strong sales culture in an organization and also making the jump from one position to another, succession planning. And I think those are like super important topics when it comes to the sales industry. We've got such high turnover, 20 to 30%, especially in our salespeople. And the question is why is that so high? So we're going to get into some of those really cool details. But before we do that, Mike, CEO of Lola.com, give us a little background about yourself. How did you get here? I obviously talked about HubSpot. Just tell us a little bit about you.
I started my career actually in finance. I was at an investment bank, but the banking work we did was all focused on tech companies. And that was how I fell in love with the technology industry. I was in San Francisco at the time. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I said, I love these tech companies so much, I want to go join one. And I joined an e-commerce startup and then an enterprise software startup. And both of those didn't do so well. And that was around the kind of 2000 crash timeframe. And I said, maybe I need to learn a little bit more about this business world. And so I moved back to Boston, got an MBA, and then joined another software company. And then after that experience, linked up with a couple folks getting started at HubSpot and had a fun ride there and, haven't looked back since. So I started off again in finance, but it's been tech focused the whole time and then mostly marketing, although at the last company and obviously now as CEO, I have actually started to manage sales at the last company, part of the team there, and then, have a touch point across everything now. So a very tech and marketing kind of focused career so far.
Yeah, very interesting. And your success path, you failed at 2 startups, went back to school, educated yourself, honed in your skill, and then you picked a couple of good ones along the way. And one of them happened to be, that little small company called HubSpot.
And especially coming out of business school, I actually decided not to join a startup. So I joined a little bit bigger company that was doing about 100 million in revenue at the time. It's called SolidWorks. It's a much bigger company now because it's grown a lot. But it was engineering software. But again, they had a good customer base. They were hundreds of employees. And I wanted to join something that was still growing fast and entrepreneurial, but had kind of gotten over that hump because I wanted to learn from a really good management team of like, what does success look like? I had learned what failure had looked like, and I wanted to see what success looked like. And I learned a ton from that management team. And I was fortunate that the founder and also the CEO kind of took me under their wing a little bit and are still important mentors to me today. And I learned a lot from that company. I had my experience at SolidWorks was great. And I think a lot of the things that I learned at SolidWorks ended up helping me at HubSpot over time. And so I kind of went a little bit later stage in order to learn the things that I hadn't had experience with yet before, going back to the earlier stage stuff.
Interesting. And we're going to come back to that because this is very important when we talk about especially salespeople and 50% of the workforce being millennials. We see a lot of change happening very rapidly. And that's both change within the company as well as change outside the company. We also see 20 to 30% turnover in the industry in sales as a whole. And I want to come back to what you did in terms of you chose to be in a certain spot with a company to be able to cut your chops, if you would, learn the ropes. And then you did something back on the education to really educate yourself on more of the masters in business management, if you would. And that helped you in your career. So I want to come back to that. Before I do me a favor, my friend. Can you just tell us one thing? I want to know one thing that nobody would know about you, even if they looked at all of your social profiles.
I played football in college. And I actually won a Burger King National Scholar Athlete Award.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Which, so like a little tidbit from way back a couple decades ago. Yeah.
So what position did you play in college?
I played offensive line. Division III. So we're, I'm not 6'6" or anything like that. But, you see me walking on the street, I'm not a small person.
I love it. And then the Burger King scholarship. Tell me about that. How did you find it?
I did. It's actually funny. The athletic department applied for me. I had decent grades and I played football, and they kind of took a flyer on it, and I got picked for it. And because I was D3, I was not allowed to earn any athletic-based scholarships. It's all just need-based. And so the money actually went to the school and their financial aid fund, which is actually great. And so it wasn't a ton of money. It was like, I don't know, maybe $5,000. I don't even remember. But I got to go to this whole ceremony and had one of those really big checks. My mom came, and so she and I are there holding a really big check with like the Burger King logo on it. They served Whoppers at this lunch, even though it was held at a school locally. It's kind of like a fun thing to do, but it's sort of definitely a kind of a random fact.
The good old BK check. There you go. Yep. Still today, Burger King's fries are my favorite fries. Although I haven't had it in I don't know how many years. But if I were to choose a fast food, it would be BK's fries. All right. Very good. Listen, let's come back to a topic that I think is very challenging for salespeople today. And that is all around managing our career, right? And how do we move up in the organization? The change of within an organization that we're expecting, especially when we see individuals come in and they're like, I'm ready to be promoted right now. And they've only been in the role for a couple of months, maybe even less than a year. You clearly went from a CMO to CEO, and you obviously made your way through to CMO. And you said something earlier that when you first started your career, you went to an established company, you wanted to find that mentor, you wanted to learn what I'm interpreting for you, learn the ropes, get somebody to help guide you and coach you. And then you took your career in a different path by going to startup, didn't happen, education, come back, and you popped a big one, obviously what we talked about earlier, HubSpot. So talk a little bit about the jump that you made, and then let's correlate that to our sales leaders and salespeople that are listening in right now. How and what should we be looking at and thinking about in terms of our own succession planning and making that happen for ourselves?
Well, I'd say the first thing would be is don't be afraid to take some time, and a significant amount of time, in order to educate yourself and grow and get the right experiences that you need. I mean, that job that I took after business school was a good job, but I really saw it as an education for myself. And I didn't spend 6 or 12 months there. I was there for 4 years. And I think the sort of faster pace that people expect to kind of be promoted at today, from one perspective, is good because it drives people. But there are things that just take time to learn. And that was my first job, managing a team of any size. I managed a team started at 12 and grew from there. And there's just things like that you can't do that for 6 months and then become a great manager. There's things that just take time. And so the first thing I would say is, don't expect in some new role that you're going to have it mastered in 6 or 12 months. There are things that just take years to learn. And even now, 18 months into the CEO role, there's still a lot of things I'm learning about this job, even though I think I was very well prepared for it before. I had managed teams of over 100 people. I had managed global teams. I had managed sales and marketing and BDRs. I had managed in various industries. I had served at actually multiple outside boards as an outside director previously. So I had a lot of the right experience to come into this job, but there's still things I'm learning about it now. So the first thing I would say is just sometimes don't rush it. And sometimes, just take a step back and understand that you're going through some learning now. And sometimes that takes years.
Fair point and fair response, especially those that are looking to move up. When you think about this high turnover rate that we have, which is 20 to 30% of our sales force on an annual basis, is churning. It's a huge problem. I'm sure you experience it as well, since you've got a sales team as well. What do you think is the reason that people are churning outside of or other than the fact that they're not performing? Is it because people are looking to take these steps and get somewhere faster and they're going to go and chase after that?
I think some of it is, yes. I think some of it is also fit. I know that there are reps that are not performing well at company A, but at company B, they'll crush it. Yeah. And either because of the management style, but a lot of it sometimes is the sales process of the industry or the people that they need to sell to and things like that. And so I think that's important to keep in mind as well. So I don't know. I think a lot of it is just fit related in terms of process, industry, culture, like a lot of those kind of things. But there's definitely a component of it of people trying to chase 5 or 10% more money or things like that.
Let's talk about succession planning. They say millennials aren't going after the money. They're going after the plan, the reward, the recognition, the culture, all the things that when you and I were growing up in the last 20 years in our career, we were oftentimes, you see salespeople, they're chasing after the money. I don't care about being on stage. I don't care about getting the award. I just want the money. Whereas now it's a little bit slightly different. They do care about the plan. Like, what's your plan for me, boss, in terms of where I'm going to go? Yeah. That's an extremely important conversation that needs to happen in terms of succession planning that I believe is fundamentally missing inside of most organizations. And that is an expectation of where you are today to where you think you could go tomorrow, and an alignment between manager and individual that this is where they think that person should go. Can you talk a little bit about that and what do you see happening?
Yeah, I think that's essential today. And this is something that I actually learned from Mark Roberge, who ran sales at HubSpot we were sort of each other's co-pilots over all those years. He put in a really structured process of basically like a career ladder for sales. And then reps would get feedback and evaluations of where they were in that progression to the next level. They had some sense of what the next level looked like, some sense of the amount of time it would take them to get there, and also the skills they need to develop and where they ranked on that skill set. And that was for both. There was a kind of an individual contributor, like I just want to keep selling on and on and on. And there was also like a split that also went in the management direction that he had. And I think that that's starting to grow in terms of popularity because it does work and it is kind of what folks are looking for today. And we have that at Lola. Our head of sales, Ryan Ball, worked for Mark at HubSpot, and he's brought a similar, although he's put his own touches on it, career ladder and sort of career progression with evaluations and feedback for people on the team for sales. And we actually also the same thing in software engineering now too. And so people are getting a sense of what skills they have and what skills they need to work on in order to get to the next level on that software engineering ladder. That includes both just individual contributors kind of refining their skills and moving up, as well as there's like a management side to that as well. But we've started to take that, and those are the two groups where we have the largest number of employees that do the same thing. So, our HR team is tiny, our finance team is like 3 people. So for groups like that, it's much harder to have a career ladder. But for the groups that are kind of larger and have kind of more people doing roughly the same thing, we've tried to provide them a little bit of a playbook and then give them feedback from the managers in terms of how they're progressing against that.
And for those of us that are wondering, what does Lola.com do? Just tell me a little bit about Lola.com and what you guys do, and then we'll go into this career ladder concept.
Yeah, sure. So we do corporate travel software. And so the finance team loves that we help them save money and get control and visibility over all the travel that's happening within their company. And then employees love us because we make the process of booking and managing their itineraries super simple and easy. And we give them 24/7 support as well. And so, we've got the coronavirus going around right now. And if you're a company and want to have a sense of where are all your travelers and which trips we want to cancel versus not, or you want to know how much marketing spent on travel last quarter, we can answer all those questions for you, if you're using us to do all your corporate travel.
I love it. So going back to this concept of the career ladder, you've targeted this concept to the two largest groups that you have in the company, software engineering and sales.
Mm-hmm.
Does this also work for mid-tier management to director level, to VP level, to VP to something else?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think you have to evaluate of like how many managers do you have and how many directors do you have, and do you want to bother to like hyper document a system if it's only going to be a small number of people? And we're 120 people, so we're not a giant company. But I think it absolutely does. I mean, we've had the question come up of, I'm a director, how do I become a VP? And we've actually set out criteria there's obviously role specific stuff, but the things that we worked on were company wide. Here's the impact you need to have as a VP. Here's the skills you need to have. And then obviously there's department or role specific things in addition to this. But like, in order to be a VP at Lola, like here are some of the qualities that we expect from you and you should be displaying before we promote you to become a VP. So I think this type of stuff is sort of universally applicable.
And how do you get alignment?
It boils down to good management. And I think that it's one of those where this can't be once a year you sit down and say, oh, well, I've been watching you for the past year.
Yeah.
And here's where, I think you're 82% of the way there and they think they're 100% of the way there. And why aren't you going to promote me? It's got to be one of those where your managers need to do the good management thing and have very frequent conversations. And so for most of those roles, it's at least quarterly that there's like a more kind of formal evaluation of where they are in the ladder. But it needs to be even more frequent conversations than that are informal between the person and their manager around that growth. And so a lot of this, again, at the end of the day, it always boils down to good management based on the person and the relationship. And so it really does boil down there, but you need to make sure it's not annual. It's got to be way more frequent than that.
Yeah. And when you think about succession planning, and whether it's sales or software engineering or whatever the role might be, it's immaterial. I think it's important that when you've put somebody in a position, you said, we're going to make you a manager, or we're going to even put you into from a senior account executive to a global account executive, whatever it might be, right? No matter what the role is, everybody's got to be on the same page in terms of what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses. But one of the biggest challenges that I see happening, Mike, is we have personally done this ourselves. And it was something that our leaders and I just talked about, that we put people in certain positions and we said, congratulations, high five, you've just been promoted to whatever position it might be. But we never stopped and thought, how do we help you develop in this area and that area and this area? And there's so many free things. Like, even if you go to HubSpot, you can sign up for HubSpot, free sales leadership training, or free this, free, right? Udemy. There's all these different courses, lynda.com, tons of courses that are out there that you could help put somebody on a specific path. Is that something that when you think about succession planning that leaders should be thinking about, is when I walk into a meeting with my, whoever it might be, software engineer, salesperson, sales director, sales vice president, even a chief sales officer, right? When I walk into a meeting, if there's something that's missing, should I also be walking in with saying, I'd like you to go try this. I'd like you to read this book. I'd like you to watch this podcast. I'd like you to take this training course. Should we be thinking about that as leaders?
Yes and no. I think it's great to identify those areas of growth for people. And I love the philosophy of, you just got promoted to X new job. This is the beginning of your development there, as opposed to the end of your development in the prior role, right? It's like, okay, now that you're at this job, here's a couple of things you really need to work on. I don't know if I love the idea of the manager coming in with like, well, here's the 4 things that you need to go do. I kind of like the manager helping to work with the employee to identify those areas of growth, and then putting it a little back on the employee to kind of say, well, for next week, now that we agree that this is an area they need to grow into, why don't you look around and you figure out what you think the resources are that would help you get to this, right? And maybe they come back and they're totally stuck, then you can give them a couple hints. But I don't know that it should be the manager's job to lay out every single step in a cookbook fashion for someone to grow their career. So I think it's kind of like a give and a take. I think they should identify areas of growth, but I think in some ways you got to put it, it's the person's career and they should be motivated to kind of do a lot of the work themselves. They need help, they need support, they need guidance. But I think it's a little difference between, okay, now that you're a sales manager, go read this book and then come back to me with these questions and whatever. I think it can be a little bit more personalized than that.
I love that you said that. Last week I published a LinkedIn post that got a little bit of virality there. And I closed with the following statement. You own your own growth.
Yes.
To your point, I think that's what you're saying. Yes, you might need help, or you may have a weakness that you don't even see, and your sales leader, whoever the leader might be, is going to say, "Did you know? Have you seen?" Right? I want to point this out to you, and you might need some coaching. Everybody needs that. But at the end of the day, whatever that plan is to get from here to there, or whatever the weakness is that you're trying to overcome, you own your own growth. And what you just said is take control. Go do the research. Go figure out on this thing called the internet that's been around just for a couple of years. The resources are way in overabundance to be able to help solve certain types of problems. So we own that process as individuals. And I love what you said. And I think that a great succession planning discussion includes me as the individual coming to my leader and saying, here's what I think I'm working on. And here's what I think I'm going to do to try to help solve this problem or this problem, or help grow and develop in this area. Maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's just a growth area, right? What do you think? And I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. I will tell you that no one on the board is telling me what my weaknesses are and giving me a book or a class to go take to go work on them. At a certain point in your career, it's going to fall back on you, and you want to develop those good habits of helping yourself. And again, it doesn't mean that no one else cares or no one else helping. Your manager is your coach, and that's outside advisor and all these things. But you need to you own your career, like you said, and you need to take primary responsibility for it. And that's going to serve you well as you become more and more senior, because you get less and less of this step-by-step growth plan as you become more senior.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And I love what you said, especially at the CEO level. There's no one else at the board telling you, hey, I think you need to grow in this particular area. Why don't you go take some training? No. That doesn't happen. You got to do a lot of self-reflection, right? A lot of self-reflection and figure out how to fix certain areas and or how to grow in certain areas. This all ties into building a culture. And I think culture at Lola.com, we've talked a little bit about that. You built some different cultural dynamics between HubSpot and Cybereason. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, how does culture at Lola differ from some of these companies that you've been at before? But before we do that, I want everybody to listen into this important message right now to our program sponsor. Every sales rep executes a cadence when they reach out via email, phone, or social media to initiate a conversation with a potential prospect. The art of a cadence is determined based on a myriad of factors, fueled primarily by a sales rep's intuition regarding the company and contact that's being pursued. However, there are a lot of questions that aren't always clear when initiating a conversation and creating a successful cadence. Zant has authored The Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence. This ebook answers questions such as, how many times should the rep attempt to contact? How long should the rep wait between attempts? What methods are most effective? And more. Download your free copy of Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence at salescadenceguide.com. That's salescadenceguide.com. And now back to our program. All right, right before that break, we were just talking about succession planning and how that can lead to positive culture and the benefit it has to an organization. So talk a little bit, how does culture at Lola.com, differ from some of the core organizations that you were at that you had massive success at, HubSpot as an example, or Cybereason?
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities, but there's some differences as well. You know, our founder, Paul English, does a lot of outside nonprofit humanitarian work. And that's something that I think is more important to us at Lola than it has been culturally at some of the other companies. And I don't want to say that other companies I've been at don't care about that stuff, because they do, but it's something that's really, really core to us. And so we have this cultural principle that we call wicked loving within Lola's culture. And that's really around sort of, trying to leave the world in a better place and treating everyone with a lot of respect. So that stuff I think is probably one area that we're a little different than maybe some other companies are.
Wait, what did you call it? Weekend?
It's the wicked thing is a little bit of a Boston terminology, and both Paul and I grew up in Boston. So it sort of comes from wicked awesome. A lot of people would say here. We call it wicked loving. So
Wicked
it's like a
loving. Okay, I
loving
thought you
company
said
or wicked
I
loving,
thought you said earlier weekend loving, but no, you're talking about wicked
No.
loving. Like
There may be companies in that culture, but that is not our culture.
I love it. So wicked loving. What is that again? One more time.
Just the idea that we leave the world in a better place and that we treat each other with a lot of respect. And so one example we talk about is that we're willing to make the tough business decisions that we have to make. But if you're letting someone go or whatever the decision is that you have to make, we try to do it in a much more loving and caring way than most companies would. And so I'll give you an example. There's been a few folks that we've had to part ways with that I've had a relationship with. And I and other people at the company, in some cases, get them interviews the next day or are offering other types of support that most companies wouldn't normally do. Because I know a lot of companies, when somebody doesn't work out, not hitting your number, whatever it is, you're out the door and it's like, okay, maybe we'll bump into each other in the street, but maybe we won't.
Yeah.
And we're texting and emailing those people and really trying to help and try to find another situation that's a better fit for them. That's just one small example. But I think that, it gives you really sort of a flavor of what we're talking about. The human side of things is really important to us.
Yeah, interesting. And I do agree with you. You're going to have those folks that sometimes you have to make a tough decision because maybe they're an amazing individual, but probably in the wrong role. Mm-hmm. And you might not have the right role for them, and they've got to go outside and go find that. And there's very few leaders that I've worked with that do exactly what you just said. They'll go make the phone call proactively to John or Susie or Billy or Mary, whoever it is, to say, hey, I've got somebody who I want you to take a look at. And I know me personally, what I've done before as well is in those scenarios, especially if someone, maybe the company's downsizing and it's just the luck of the draw, right? It's not because of performance. Maybe there is a downsize. Like, you want to do everything you can to be able to demonstrate to that individual that you care about them, because guess who else is watching? Everybody else in the organization, right? And that type of thing can affect the organization. And even if it's for a performance reason, you're not going to sit there and tell everybody in the company, attention, everyone, we terminated so-and-so because of performance. Like, you can't do that, right? So no matter what, this wicked loving approach, it's got to be the right way to do stuff.
And you never know where people end up in some other place where you need a favor from them, or 6 months later, they're at some other company that you're trying to sell to, or whatever it is. All this stuff comes back to you. And I think that, founder Paul and myself are all both really big on this kind of just idea of kind of like karma within the business world. And we just always try to help more than we're trying to, get favors from people. And if you do that, like, eventually it comes back around to help you. And there's people that want to help you when you need help. And so again, it sounds like an obvious thing, but not everyone actually does it in practice.
So in other words, I'm going to simplify it, and I hope this is not offensive, but what you're saying is just be a good human.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just be a good human and bring that kindness into business. Yeah?
Yeah. I think that's right. And, we don't always do it perfectly, but we try our best.
Yeah, exactly. From a culture perspective, do you have anybody that works remotely, meaning at home, from other part of the world, or is everybody local?
We have a handful, but it's a minority. It's like 5 or less out of the 120. So we're pretty office centric today.
Okay. Now, when we think about, and of course, previously in your previous roles, you had many people spread out all over the world, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that we're starting to see that a lot more. For example, of Vengreso, we have 0 real estate.
Yeah. That's
right.
Cool.
0 real estate. We're a 100% virtual company. We've got our head of digital marketing. He's out in Finland. We've got our operations and marketing team out of Colombia. We've got people in India. We've got people in Canada. They're all over, right? And we're very open to this whole virtualized concept. And by the way, it really helps from a diversity perspective, which we'll get to in just a second. Yeah. But one of the things that we have made a point to do when we have onboarded new individuals, and I'd love your perspective on this, especially in a virtualized workforce, especially because, Lola is helping with this whole travel environment. You got this virtualization and mobilization, right? We actually do what's called a virtual receiving line. And now I got this concept by watching another leader when they hired a new person, everybody in the office that person would say, you tell the person, come in at 9:00 in the morning, be there on your first day at 9 a.m. And what would happen is the person would open the door and they'd have the entire office, a whole entire receiving line, like, you're a wedding line. You got people on both sides. And that person walks in, they open up the door, and there's this giant receiving line of, say, 200 people in the office that is waiting to welcome them on their first day. And they walking down this aisle and they're high-fiving and be like, oh my God, is this what I'm getting? And so we don't have a chance to do that, right? In fact, one of the folks that's worked with me for 4 years, she's one of our CSMs. I've been through marriage with her. I've been through all kinds of sickness and this, that, and the other, right? I've never shaken her hand. Wow. Never. Not one time. Yeah. So when we bring new people on, we do this virtualized. We do a virtual receiving line. And everybody in the company, we open up a bridge, first day on the job, open up a bridge. Everybody comes in. We welcome them. We high five virtually. We talk about the company, why we're a couple of people talk about why they're so excited. Tell me about virtualizations and what people can do in a virtualized workplace, or what ideas you might have in terms of how to bring people together culturally.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that there's a few things that we do here that, even though we're not as virtual as some companies are, there's a couple internal chat, like Slack channels, that are focused on different interest areas. So, there's one on golf, there's one on craft beer, there's one on board games, there's one on parenting and things like that. And I think that those are interesting ways for people to connect, and all that, even though we're in the same office, all the connection there happens virtually, and connect with people in another department. I mean, I know I have 2 kids and I'm in that parenting channel a decent amount. And just to see a picture of someone that I don't interact with that much, and then with their family and like what they're doing, what they're up to, provides this other level of connection that's really cool. And then, the sort of same concept, but for people that have different interests as well. And it kind of gives you an opportunity to connect with people that you don't work with day to day, and it kind of gets you some exposure to the rest of the company. But I love the virtual receiving line. The other thing we do, and I think this works well for companies that have a lot of people in one location and then some number of remote folks, there's this great video camera and microphone called the Meeting Owl. I've used that with teams that I've had that, you maybe have a meeting of like 15 people in a conference room, and you got like 10 people dialed in remotely. And the people that had that remote experience, usually, the camera in the room with the 15 people is pretty bad. And you can't tell who's talking and like what's going on. You're kind of disoriented what's happening in that room. The Owl does this awesome job of having a full 360 panoramic view, and at the same time doing whoever's talking and zooming in on them at the same time. So you can kind of get both the big picture and the narrow picture at the same time. And every time I've used it as a remote person, you feel like you have so much more context of what's going on in that room. So that's something that we've got a bunch of those around here, and that seems to really help the remote employees too.
Meeting Owl. Now, I'll add to that is what we do as well, and especially when there's a virtualized environment or mobile workforce, our requirement is every person who joins a Vengreso meeting must have video turned on. It is a culture. It is a way. There is no video allowed. And of course, there's some exceptions where we had somebody who had hip surgery and they were lying in bed, and
you're like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're okay with that. Like, you get a get out of jail free card, right?
You must have like reps in the car or stuff. Like, it must get a little crazy sometimes.
Yeah, well, actually, believe it or not, we've got one of our writers for our LinkedIn profile development, and he literally travels all over the United States. And every time he gets on a call with us, we're always like, "Where are you at today?" Because he's got his RV and he's got his his puck that he's working, and we don't care as long as he gets the job done. Like, I don't care, right? And he's always out and about, and he's inside some park here, some canyon there, some mountain here. It's really kind of funny. Now it's become like, where in the world is Jason at?
Yeah, that's cool.
So those small things I think can really help as well. We're coming up with another few more minutes here, but I want to talk about like these small things that we just talked about, like the wicked loving approach, creating a diverse culture. I love the idea of having a Slack channel and people can join for parenting and beer. We actually have a Google Chat channel for the whole entire company. And recently, one of our founders and our CVO, Vivica von Rosen, she came on to the chat and she was having a bad day at home. So she decided she was going to vent. And she decided, I'm going to vent a little bit. And can I tell you guys a little story about what just happened here at home? And she wrote this whole story. And, she was upset with her husband. And everybody started laughing. And all the women in our organization were like, oh, I so feel for you. Our husbands never pay attention. And then some of the men were like, yeah, it's kind of just standard protocol. That happens, right? But it actually brought some realism and some just like bonding moment to everybody that made that executive so real.
And I think when you're all virtual, that's the stuff that can be missing, because that tends to happen in person. And so you got to figure out ways to stimulate it digitally. That's great that you've done that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all these things lead to a diverse and a culture of inclusion, which is something that I know that you have wanted to bring to your organization as in your role as CEO. So talk a little bit about this whole concept of diversity and inclusion. How do we make that happen? How do we become intentional? Is it the right thing to do for an organization?
I mean, it's definitely the right thing to do. And it's something that I'm passionate about. And our founder, Paul English, is also really passionate about. One of the things that got me excited about joining the company was that we had 2 women on the board. We had a management team that I think was not quite 50-50, but like almost like one person shy of 50-50 men and women on the management team. And it was generally more diverse than most tech companies in Boston. I'll say that. Not the most diverse company in the world. We always have more work to do, but doing okay on a lot of those attributes. And that was one of the reasons I was excited. And knowing that it was important to Paul also got me excited. And, there's a lot of like little things we do, but I think the most important thing we do is just make it a priority in every recruiting effort that we're doing. We had a Women at Lola event last night because we have International Women's Day coming up. And one of the issues that we talked about was, and this is a female woman who's an engineering manager trying to brainstorm with this group, how do we bring in more female engineers? And she's like, I'm working hard at it, but here's the places I'm struggling, or here's the things that, we could work on more, and kind of like getting some help from the rest of the group and things like that. So I think it's one of those where it's easy to say intellectually that it's a priority, but then when it comes to the day-to-day of recruiting, are you making sure that you're doing your best to source diverse candidates for every single role that you're hiring for? Are you making sure to, kind of benefit of the doubt and bring in a couple diverse candidates to interview for every single role? Those are things that we really try to do in all of our hiring. And I think that's one thing that I think helps us. There's lots of other little things, but it's definitely something that's really important to us. But a lot of it boils down just in the front of just, you may have to work a little harder to find kind of potentially non-standard candidates or candidates that don't have the exact experience you're looking for, or things like that. But that could do an awesome job in the role. And you just, you need to work hard to make sure your recruiting pipeline on the way in is really diverse.
I was just at the Zant Next 2020 conference last week, and there was a great fireside chat that was being done about diversity and inclusion. Specifically, it was women in sales, which is a big challenge in sales today. Only 30% of our sellers are women, and only 13% of our sales leaders are women, right? And don't get me started on how many of them are actually Hispanic. That's even worse. Or African-American, or any other culture. I'm Hispanic, obviously. One of the stories that came out of that was there was a sales story, and it was a $100 million deal. It was a big, giant monster deal. They had 13 vendors. They narrowed it down to 2 vendors, and it was one clear front runner, right? A whole RFP process. And the front runner, it was day for presentation. They came in, they brought their 15 folks in, and the other provider brought their 15 folks in, and it was theirs to lose, 100% theirs to lose. Their executive sponsor, financial sourcing, it was like, it's yours to lose. They walk in, they do their pitch, they high five, they're super excited, they're ready to go. 2 weeks later, they get a phone call right before New Year's, and it was I'm sorry, we didn't choose you. Now, it was something interesting that happened, and it was like, of course, you're that executive. You get that call, and it's a $100 million deal, and it's like one of the biggest deals in company history, and your heart drops. Like, here was the reason why. Number one reason: you came in with all white males, 15 people. The other company came in with a completely diverse workforce, and that diverse workforce was from people of all nationalities, all genders. We chose to go with this company, even though you were the front runner, because their company matched our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an interesting point that we don't think about, I think, when we're in that hiring process, that we want to be able to have our customers relate. I know at Vengreso, I was mentioning this during the pregame show, we are extremely intentional about who we hired and who I brought in as part of our founding members, that we're 50% minority owned company, 50% minority owned. And of our workforce, we're 50% women of our entire global workforce. And that's super important for people to understand, that you have to be intentional to create the look that you're looking to create the diversity that you're looking to create the diversity in thought and experience. You have to do that. And I can tell you, on one occasion recently, I was looking at an organization and we were looking at buying services from them. And I looked at their About Us page. And unfortunately, they had 9 boxes on that About Us page of all their senior leaders. Every single one of those people, no offense against male or white male, but they were white men. And that really shows, it's like, you haven't really given this a real kick in the butt to really focus in on that diversity and culture and how important it is. Tell me, what do you think? I'll give you a chance to respond.
Totally agree. And I'd say that it's something that it's so much easier if you do it earlier when you're smaller. Because now, I don't know how big that company was, but now you've got the top 9 positions are held by white men. And every person who's thinking about applying for a job at that company, you were looking at it because you might buy something from them. People that might work there are going to that same page. And the people that don't look like me are turned off by the fact that there's only people that look like me on that page.
Yeah.
And so it makes it harder for you to do recruiting the longer you go without a diverse team. So it just starting early on that stuff. And once you have a diverse team, it makes it easier to continue to recruit a diverse team. There's lots of little things that you can do, but it's like starting early, I'd say, would be the biggest thing. We put our whole company up, actually. So on our team page, it's the entire company.
Yep.
And so you can see the board, and you're like, oh, like they have some women on the board. Like, that's interesting. A lot of white guys on the board because we got investors that are all white guys. So like, it is what it is. But management team, you're like, oh, pretty diverse. And you look at the rest of the team, you're like, okay, like, there's something going on here. Like, that's kind of interesting. And so I think sometimes you can do little things like put the whole team up as opposed to just like the top couple people. But the biggest thing is just start early because it just gets harder.
And you know what I love also too, when we talk about candidates, when candidates ask like, why did you choose me? And if you're listening in, that's probably one of the best questions to ask when you've been given the offer, right? Why did you choose me? I want to understand that. And I'm not looking for someone to stroke my ego and make me feel like I'm all, I want to know why you chose me. And I'm probably violating some sort of law or HR policy somewhere. But I have definitely told people that we've hired, look, you see what our webpage looks like. Do you see the diversity that we have in our organization? One of the key things, other than the fact that you hit all the milestones of everything we're looking for, from your knowledge, your experience, your this, your that, I can tell you with a certainty in the back of my mind, it's going through, you're Hispanic, you're female, you're African-American, you're this, you're that. You've got these elements, and that's one of the reasons why I want to hire you. That really helps someone to kind of wrap around. If you can start that early, to your point, start early. You can wrap somebody in. Now, guess what that person's going to think of when they're in that leadership position? They're going to think the exact same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And another way of thinking about it is that you have an advantage with diverse candidates if you have some diversity in your team. Yeah. And so in this hiring battle that we're all in to hire the best talent, there's a lot of very talented women out there. There's a lot of very talented minorities out there. There's a lot of very talented people from the LGBTQ community. Like, if you want the inside edge on recruiting the top candidates from those communities, you need to have people like that on your team. And if you don't, you have much less of a shot. It's so hard to hire now. Why wouldn't you avail yourself of the ability to hire every possible top person from every possible, background?
Words of wisdom from Mike Volpe, CEO of Lola.com. Mike, do me a favor. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way? Is it through LinkedIn? Are you on Twitter? How do they get a hold of you?
All those things are good. Obviously, the company website is Lola.com. And then I'm Mike Volpe on LinkedIn. And then Twitter, I'm at mvolpe.
So we'll make sure we put Mike's profiles into the show notes team. We'll also, in case you're audibly listening to this, it's VOLPE. And make sure, people, please, if you're going to reach out to connect with Mike, please make sure that you tell him you heard him on the Modern Selling Podcast. So at least he knows that it's legit in terms of an actual personal connection request on LinkedIn. Mike, one last question before I let you go. And it's our final question. Your all-time favorite movie, what is it?
I mean, there's so many good choices there, but I'm going to go original Terminator.
Original Terminator.
Original Terminator from way back. Yeah.
I'll be back.
It's a good movie. Yeah. And it's less like the more modern ones are also great movies, but they're sort of very overproduced and like millions of explosions and all this. There's more of a story to the original one. Yeah. And it's a little bit more sci-fi than just a blow 'em up, shoot 'em up kind of movie.
Agree. And Arnold didn't look like plastic back then.
No, a lot more real back then. And that was kind of like a key thing that made him who he is today, and just like one of his key roles. And
exactly.
It's an old movie at this point, but it's still a great movie.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. All right, fantastic. Well, there you guys heard it from Mike Volpe. Make sure you connect with him. And thanks for listening into the Modern Selling Podcast. Hang tight. Don't click that channel off yet, because I want you to listen to this very important message. Zant, the enterprise leader in sales engagement, has authored The Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence. This ebook answers questions such as, how many times should the rep attempt to contact someone? How long should the rep wait between attempts? And many more. Download your free copy of The Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence at salescadenceguide.com. That's salescadenceguide.com. Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a rating and review on iTunes. I would appreciate it. Also, if you want to easily find our show, just go to themodernsellingpodcast.com. Hey, since you'll be on our site, be sure to check out our Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by my co-founder and CMO, Bernie Borges. Thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.